I think so, and both were dedicated to his life story. They both truly, although Gerta more than even Robin, because Gerta herself was a refugee. She escaped with the Rudys and Gerta's two children through the mountains, a very daring escape herself. So in many aspects, Gerta had much more common with Rudy about Holocaust. Then on the other hand, Robin had much more from Rudy to feel on a daily level, margish in Hebrew you say margish, to feel corporal, physically, his life after Holocaust. Very much so. I met her. Yeah. I came specifically one separate trip to her house. So I was in London. We spent full 6 hours. She showed me all around how she lives, where she lives. So this was then how I got to know her. This was before the hike. So at the time of hike, at the time of the trek, when she came to the cairn, I already knew her. We emailed before, and that's how I already met Susie was her daughter. Her daughter, I met her before because she came to Vancouver and through Rudy visited us. I knew about Gerta, so I approached Gerta and visited her. So when I met her, she was extremely friendly, extremely welcoming, and willing to talk. She talked, I didn't read her book yet. That's interesting. When I met Gerta, I have not read her book yet. I knew about her and some details of her, but I never read her book. So she described me all of it. We talked about her daughters. We talked about herself. She described in detail the transition to Shumava. She had to go through a ski chairlift with the children to camouflage a outing, as a spring outing to the soldiers rather than an escape, and had apparently a signed doctor, her colleague from London, was waiting for her on the other side of the cable train, of the other side of the ski terrain in Poland. So anyway, she told me some details of that, and then she also focused on Rudy. So she did say these issues, that Rudy was hugely involved after the war with rediscovering the details of the details. He could not live for anything much other than that, and she felt rightly so, very much upset with many figures of that world post-war, including Jews, whom he felt did not contribute enough. So we talked about that issue a bit, that all his life he lived in a post-traumatic stress, and in the first few years was even more visible because he was even less in control. He was more dynamic. He was more raw. But nevertheless, although she accepted Gerta that syndrome, we even talked about it, she agreed with his opinions. She agreed even with the Israeli leadership and historians, and of course with Rejo Kastner, that they were big betrayers, and Rudy was correct. And she was less emotional than Rudy. She was non-emotional. She was more stoic in every aspect, but very well informed. She was already in her early 80s when I met her, late 70s, early 80s. She was very well informed, well organized with her books and ideas. There was no remorse that they separated, by the way. I even asked her once, she said, no, this was a correct move. And she said, I know he's happy with Robin, and I'm happy for them both. So it was a very amicable description of that type of evolution, and it was easy to understand why, because Robin, there must have been some contact, because Robin was so forgiving. Robin was completely accepting everything what Ruby said, and she even told me once, Robin, did you know what? Rudy can never be wrong. You may want to disagree with him, but Rudy is never wrong. And I almost had the same impression from Gerta.